Manchester Church of the Brethren. I have a brother who is a missionary in Africa, Kenya, Africa. Yeah, it's, I can hear it in my voice and mine. It's on, okay, Tim, it sounds like maybe they want it a little bit louder. So I know. I know. I'm gonna move over here then, because I can't get underneath the speakers. Oh, that one, okay. Yep, there it is. I may have to move over to the other corner. My brother and his wife have an infant rescue mission in Kenya called Mahali Pa Maisha. That is Swahili for a place of life. And so I've had the opportunity to be over there 3 different times. Most of these pictures are from the first trip that I made there in 2007 with a seminary class. Last week I talked more about the mission. This week I'm going to talk about Kenya itself and give you a little bit of an idea about what it's like over there. Kenya, Nairobi, where their mission is located near, is right on the equator, and so it's really warm year-round. I've been there during the winter most of the time, and it's in the 80s over there during the winter. Any place there's a lot of people, it's going to be pretty dry because they beat the ground to death with walking on it. This is just a picture. I put a few of these in here just to give you an idea of the conditions that the average person lives in the area around there that lives rural, not necessarily in Nairobi. Nairobi is a modern city with all the amenities you would need. Once you get outside of Nairobi, you run into water is always an issue, sanitation, and you can see just from general, there's a lot of trash thrown around, and so you see that a lot of the times. I took this one because this is the Jolly Inn Bar, Boarding and Lodging. So if you ever get to Kitengela, this might be a place you'd be able to get a room to spend the night if you think you could do that. You can tell that probably they've got a well, they've got a water tower. This is how they store their water on top of the buildings to give them pressure down in the buildings, and so they would fill that up. They don't have to worry about it freezing during the winter like we would here. This is where you would do shopping. These little stores are just lined up all along the streets and all along the roads there. And I'm not even sure what all is in there for that, but they're just little stores that you go to. This is out in the country. This was one of the places that we went to. I took this picture because this is the well clear down here. And people that are lucky enough to have a pump, they would pump it up and store it in a tank close to the buildings. If you're not lucky enough to have a pump, then you walk down there and fill some kind of container to bring it back up to the house with you. And I've got some pictures about that here in a minute. We went to, one of the trips that we took was down into the Rift Valley. I put this picture in because up on the sides of the mountains and down into the valley a ways, it is green. This is what a lot of people think more of Africa, more of the jungle. The Rift Valley is a valley that runs north and south through Africa, and it's where the tectonic plates that formed Africa came together, and they haven't pushed completely together. If you see any news clips, I see them come up on Facebook. I don't know if they do, but the Rift Valley, one part of Africa is moving north and the other part's moving south. And there's a crack in places in the Rift Valley that's showing where the continents are moving. and they're beginning to move apart. Eventually, there will be another ocean in between these two parts. So if you're here in, I don't know, 200 million years, you'd be able to see Africa will look different than what it is now. We'll see whether that long before the Lord comes back. So, right. I was always fascinated whenever I get to somewhere not Indiana with the vegetation and what the trees especially look like. When we got down to the Rift Valley, we were going to a Maasai village to spend a couple days just to visit, and this was the basis of the Maasai agriculture is livestock, either goats and sheep. These particular are mainly goats or cattle. And if you're more wealthy, then you have cattle. I noticed in this picture after I'd taken it that I thought it was interesting that this great big satellite dish is sitting over here too. Kenya is one of those countries where you see both worlds. You see the modern coming in, and you see the older type of agriculture. We were kind of fascinated by this because these goats are tended during the day and night by young boys. Here's one here. And they just stay with the goats and they take them out and they sleep out at night. And I remember somebody said they'll bring them food about once a day. But other than that, they don't go back to the village. They sleep out. You can see there's a lot of low brush here. Everything in Africa that is native, in other words, whatever was there from the beginning, has got thorns on it, because there's so many animals that eat shrubbery and bushes and trees that if it doesn't have thorns on it, it gets eaten to the ground. This is called a whistling thorn bush. These are the bases of the thorns grow into a ball, and those balls are hollow, and ants drill a hole in it, and then ants live in those balls at the base of the thorn, and when the wind blows through it, it's like a flute. So I guess we never heard it, but I guess when the wind's blowing right, you can hear these thorns whistle at you, and so you can hear the whistling thorns when you're there. The kids came in to talk to us. The hat is our bus driver, and this was a woman that traveled with us down into the valley. But these are the boys that were taking care of those goats. And I thought it was interesting that they have umbrellas. Umbrellas aren't for the rain, it's for the sun. And so they shade themselves from the sun, because you can see there aren't any large trees out there. It's mainly low scrub brush.
Lack of trees is because there's no water.
Okay, that part of it is just grazing them down also, but I think most of it is probably because it's arid, probably lack of water. When we got to this Maasai, they really roll out, we're Mazungas, that's white people, and so whenever white people are coming into the area, they really come in and want to throw a party for us. And so they fed us chai tea, and I don't remember they had some kind of snack. Carrie back here is eating something, but there was some kind of snack that they served us. Just hospitality, just welcome us there. And I have to admit that the chai tea was good. They brought in milk, brown sugar, and then some kind of spice that we put in it. When we left 2 days later, they served us again as a going away thing. We all noticed, several of us mentioned, that the chai tea just wasn't nearly as good as when we got there. And my brother said, well, it's the same milk, no refrigeration. So you've got 2-day-old milk in a warm climate. And so most of us didn't know that when we had it. And so it kind of had a funny taste. He called ahead and said he wanted 2 goats prepared for us when we got there so we'd have something to eat. Well, now, out of experience, these folks know, the Maasai that live there, know that white people don't eat a lot of goat. And so they start coming in because anything that's left over, they're going to share it. Now, we didn't know, we knew about that he had ordered 2 goats. They had to wait for the chief to get there before they could kill them and cook them. So they hadn't even started when they got there. We didn't realize that this was where, wait a minute. This was where they were cooking them. So if we'd have stuck our heads out the back door and looked to see where they were cooking those goats, our appetites would have probably been a lot lower than what they were. I don't think that would meet Indiana state health standards in any way. Nobody got sick though. It wasn't our favorite meal while we were there. I will have to say that. This is Joseph. Joseph was a member of the Maasai tribe down there who left the area, left the community, went to school, went to college. He went to agricultural school. And the reason he went to agricultural school was because then he came back and he's trying to move his people, his tribe, into a more crop-based way of supporting themselves. They really place high value on cows, on goats, on livestock that they drive out just to pasture, but it's labor intensive, and the more you have, the richer you are, and so they don't like to necessarily kill them to eat unless they're getting a good price for them. And so he was trying to find ways to help them understand that the crops were really important for them to learn how to grow crops to eat. But it's not nearly as prestigious to grow green beans as it is to raise a cow. And so there's that social thing that they're also trying to work through. This was just our class. My brother is on the left in the orange shirt, and then this is Joseph here talking to us. They do have bees. I don't know if you've heard of the Africanized bees. They're ferocious stingers. It's hard to get in to get the honey away from them. And so they have to battle that all the time. They do raise them. They're up off the ground primarily because of termites. Termites will eat anything they can get to, and so they have to keep those wooden hives up off of the ground. He was really proud of the fact that he had convinced them to build storage. Over here we feed hay during the winter. Over there they feed hay during the dry season. So that he was the first one to come in and start teaching them how to bale hay, get it into storage, and then they'd have hay year-round for their cattle and for their goats. Anything that's up off the ground is going to be used as a clothes dryer. And so when you drive through the country over there, you can always tell when you're getting close to a house or a small community because there will be clothes hung out. And the Maasai really like bright colors, and so you can see them from a mile away. You can see these things hanging on the fence. And you never know when somebody's going to bring their cattle in, and it just comes into town, and they're close there. They're very friendly people. We did not have at a time when we were concerned about safety or had anybody that was belligerent. They're just really curious, and they're really friendly. And so we would gather around and talk and tell stories and hear stories. We played games while we were there. Somebody found a kickball, and a lot of the people played kickball with the boys. They just enjoyed that kind of interaction.
They all speak English?
Yes. There was never a place that we went in Kenya, and we did a pretty big loop and came back to Nairobi, that we didn't have people that spoke English. And so it was, now it's not to say that we couldn't have found places where Swahili would be the only thing, but for the most part, they speak English. It's broken sometimes, and sometimes it takes a while to understand, but for the most part, you can communicate any place. I wouldn't be afraid to go and travel in Kenya the only thing to get used to, and Nan would do this because we spend time in New Zealand. They drive on the left side of the road, and so you'd have to get used to that. I put this picture in because, again, cultural things that are just different. This is the mud and cow dung houses they live in. They pack these and then they dry. They've put plastic over the top of this one. This girl, we got there soon after, I think, her wedding. She was still in her wedding clothes. And if you say she looks young, she does. I don't remember whether she was either 13 or 15. But she married a 55-year-old man, and she was his third wife. So he had enough money, he was wealthy enough, had enough cows, that he could afford to support more than one wife. And so he pays a dowry to her parents. She becomes then his wife. Some things you go into a culture like this, and you wonder just how far you can go in trying to change things. Some things just you figure it's going to take a generation before it works its way out of culture. Maybe not even then.
You said, excuse me,
Yep.
said that was his third wife?
Yes. No, that was number 3. All 3 were living.
Okay.
He had 3 wives. Yeah. Yep. Yep. This was another one I put in. It's interesting. All of the native Maasai down there have short hair. And so anytime they get close to somebody, this one is holding the hair because it's amazing to them that somebody could have long, soft hair like that. I realized at that time I had a lot more hair on my arms, and one of the kids came up next to me and he was rubbing the hair on my arm because they just didn't understand how anybody could have hair on their arms like that. So anytime we'd stop in the bus in traffic or whatever, kids would run up to the bus. They're always asking for something. My brother would keep a bag of candy, and he'd get out and he'd hand each kid a piece of candy. And I suppose that's a tourist thing also, and so they get used to it when they do that. This was a public school that we went to over there. These kids would have all been students. We were there not on a school day, but the reason this picture is here is because when we went in, everybody got a new pair of shoes. You can see all the shoes there look exactly the same. I don't know how many pair of shoes we handed out that day. They've got all different sizes, and the kids would line up and come up there and they'd get them in a size that fits them. And that may be a year before they get, and they just live in them basically. So they wear them out in a year's time, and then they try to get back in and hopefully be able to get them another pair. We also went to an orphanage, and in this case we took pop and pizza. And these kids lined up to get a bottle of pop and a piece of pizza. For some of them, it may well have been the first time they'd ever tasted a soft drink or had pizza. What amazed us about this was how disciplined they were. They all took it, went back and sat down. I don't know how many of you have been in an elementary food hall lately, but it's usually chaos in there. Even if teachers have got the activity under control, it's loud and it's talking. These kids, boy, walked right back and sat down, and we did the same thing. We played games there and spent a lot of time with them. Part of what they do in that orphanage is they work on crafts and work on art things. And so all of these things in their little gift shop were made by the students. These 2 boys, and I'll be honest, I don't remember their names. I asked them, I bought these 2 art pieces here. These are pieces of straw that they cut and match colors and cut them and then put them on and glue them to the board. Those pictures are hanging on my wall at home. But I asked them if they'd write their names on the back of the pictures, and they did, but I can't read what they are at that time. Over there, I go by Chuck. I don't think that word exists in their language. So they call everybody uncle and auntie. And so I became Uncle Jack. Jack was a lot easier for them to pronounce. So I was known as Uncle Jack over there whenever they talked to me. This is where I was talking about water. I took a picture of this. This is a 3-donkey cart here. And in the back of this cart are large containers. There are a large number of people who will go from a community, from a housing development without water, go to a public well, fill these containers, and then go back and sell the water. That's a way that they make money. This is one of the community's public wells, and you can see all of these carts with containers to put water in. This truck, here's a truck, and clear back here they are lined up waiting to fill the water. The government has tried to go in and put 6-inch, which is a pretty large well, in every community, so there's at least some place close enough for them to walk to and get water. You know kids well enough that if you're the mother and you tell your 8-year-old, take that 5-gallon bucket down to the river a mile away and dip water out and carry it back, that the first time he steps over a mud puddle that he can fill the bucket in, guess where he's going to get water. So one of the projects that we worked on, and I helped with that one over there, was to take kits in that they can clean and sanitize their water. And we really worked on that to try to teach them that the water is what's making them sick, especially what makes the babies sick over there. Education is a big part of it. They raise ostriches. We were close to an ostrich farm one day, and so we stopped in to see the ostriches, and they're not a handsome bird in any stretch of the imagination, and for that, this is Zach. Zach was part of our crew, and I don't know if he got pecked or not, but I imagine that bird was looking at this right here. Whatever this is on his back, it had its eye on that. They'll eat just about anything. This is our daughter. She decided she was the only one that volunteered to take an ostrich ride when and so they took her a couple laps around that so she can say, yes, she has ridden an ostrich. David doesn't like to have a group come into Africa, especially if they've never been there before, without going on a safari. And so this is it's called Savo West Game Preserve, which is south of Nairobi. This is the dining hall. So you sit in here to eat your meals. Every meal is a buffet style meal with set hours on it, so you come in and you eat. I took this picture because of these carvings back here. Now, these aren't life-size. You can see this guy back here is standing, so the perspective of it makes them look a lot larger than what they are. But to still have these carved out of a single piece of wood was I always look forward to seeing those when I was down there. They also had hippos, and I realize I don't have a picture of them. But while you sit there eating your meal, you're looking out on the plain in the Rift Valley there in the game preserve. They pump water into these ponds so that these ponds have water in them all the time. And so while you're eating your meal, and they also have a veranda, so we'd go back down of an evening because animals come in from all over the area. You see the elephants, zebras, all kinds of antelope. Every now and then, I guess, even lions come in, warthogs, So it's a great place to spend a couple days. We usually are there 2 days when we go. And then I've just got some pictures when you drive through the brush. 3 times a day we'd go out and actually do a safari and spend an hour or 2 out driving through the brush. And it's really one of those where you see all kinds of animals. They're close to you. They're generally speaking not afraid of cars, and so as long as you don't get out of the car, which they this one, I think that's a wildebeest. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and review again to make sure. I realized that my introduction and my knowledge of African animals has always been on documentaries here in the States. And so once you get over there, you find out there's a large variety of animals that we don't, these are hartebeests. I know that because the horns look so different. And of course, that's a Cape buffalo. We see a lot of Cape buffalo. They're one you don't dare get out of the car if you're close to them. I really love the baboons. They're just, you watch them and it looks like a bunch of kids playing. This one just laid down and dozed off, took a nap right there. We see elephants on a regular basis, not a lot, and they are as big as what they, of course, over here we see elephants in the zoos a lot. What amazes me is how much they can hide. If you look close, this is an elephant, this is his back, goes up over the top, and the trunk is here. Down here's his legs. We drove about 30 feet from him and didn't see him until we were right on top of it. And he never moved. He just stayed there and ate. He was eating something in there while we were there. See a lot of giraffes. This is a go-away bird because the sound that it makes sounds like go away. So, and even the insects are large over there. That I think is a camel cricket on my brother's hand. And this is the group that went the last time. The last time I was there in 2017 was the last time that I got to go over. So, and that's it.
Well, thank you.
That's it. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
You did a good job.
I did bring. I didn't get them put out the last week when I was here talking about the infant rescue. David and Jenny rescue newborn infants. Abandoned infants are very common over there because a big part of it is the AIDS epidemic. A lot of babies are AIDS positive. They found out that if they can get antiviral to a newborn within the first either 1 or 2 weeks, I don't remember, the baby never develops AIDS. So the first thing they do when they get a newborn in is they test it for AIDS, and if it's AIDS positive, they start it on the antiviral. That way they never have to worry about that. Women will go in a hospital, have a baby, and then leave the hospital and just leave the baby there. They leave them along the road. They find them in the trash. They find them everywhere. They've got a reputation over there now of accepting newborns. They're up to over 300 that they've rescued and adopted most of those out to families over there. And so their mission is described. I put booklets back there by Tim on that thing. Yeah, right next to the laptop. Feel free to take one if you'd like to know more about that, about their mission over there in Africa.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Glad to.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming.